Good morning, everyone. My name is Javed, and this is a newbie's guide to single sign-on. So if you have already done single sign-on projects, you know identity and access management, you are probably going to be bored in this session. So that's my disclaimer. And the second news is, last I heard, if anyone cares, both soccer games were at 0-0. So a few months ago, we initiated a single sign-on project, and this is talking about that experience. When we started that project, we didn't know enough. We knew to ask some of the right questions, we hope. As usual, our procurement folks looked at Gartner, which I'm not a big believer in, but it gave us a pretty good evaluation matrix to look at the RFP responses. But beyond that, this is more a story of the mistakes that we made and the things that we didn't think of. And it's not really a cautionary tale, but this is more to give you some pointers on, if you are embarking on such a project, things that you should look for. And we need a Harry Potter spell to advance the slides. All right, folks, we'll have another session on how to advance slides. I have no idea. Do I need to aim that at the laptop? So while we figure out the logistics, so I work for a company called Bright Horizons. So Bright Horizons is in the childcare business. And when I was interviewing for the job, I asked them, so why do you need a chief security officer? Sorry about that. Operator error. I was clicking the wrong button. Thank you. So I am the VP and CISO at Bright Horizons. We are in 6 countries with 1,300 childcare centers. We do other things like tuition reimbursement management, college admission advising, etc. So from our work starts at about 2 weeks to adult care as well, because we provide in-home care for adults who need some help. As you can imagine, we have this set of applications that other people access. And we have 4 primary applications. The big problem that we have is that we grew through acquisitions, or we didn't think well enough in advance. So these 4 applications have 4 set of credentials. And one of the most common complaints we get from our clients is, how come I need to log in 4 times, or how come I need to remember 4 sets of user IDs and passwords? Because when we created those systems, some systems allowed people to choose their own username. Some insisted on their email address as the username. So even if people could choose the same password across the systems, the username always happened to be different. And turned out that one of our services is kind of sporadic. You need that every time you need a child to be cared for urgently. And but you may not need that service in 3 months or 6 months. So it's very easy that people would forget even their username. And lastly, we also wanted to build a user community. We have about 500,000 parents who could help each other out questions like, okay, so which kind of diaper can you buy, or what baby formula works well for kids who are sick? And we needed these people to be able to log in easily without creating a fifth set of credentials. So the answer was single sign-on. We had 4 sets of credentials. How do we create a fifth platform without burdening people with a fifth set? And the reasons were obvious. SSO will be quick, SSO solves our problems, and SSO will be secure. And the example I gave management was the Google ecosystem. You log into Gmail, you can log into Google Drive or Google Docs using the same user ID password, and there are these little dots up in the upper right corner that you can click to drop down all available services. So by the way, we are not there yet, but that's the journey. And this is where outside information was helpful to come up with uniform criteria. This was our first foray into this. We didn't really know what to look for. So every vendor throws out, oh, we are a market leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant or the Forrester Grid or XYZ analysts benchmark. But how do we know who to pick based on how they meet our needs plus how they are perceived in the marketplace? And obviously, we didn't want to buy someone who has technology problems or financial problems, someone who might go out of business in the next year or so. So evaluation criteria was very, very important, and it's not in the presentation, but eventually talking to existing customers was also really important, and why I will get into that a little bit later. So we wanted to make this transparent, painless, and universal for users. So we have 500,000 external users. We have about 32,000 internal users as well. And our internal users are also extremely busy. We have about 27,000 teachers in classrooms. They literally do not have a moment to spare, because each of them are taking care of maybe 10 to 15 children at a time. So when their day is over and they need to do something, they are already exhausted and they just want to go home. And asking them to learn a complicated new system or asking them to remember user ID passwords across 10 different internal applications is not fair. And also it plays into the fact that if they work, anytime they work, we have to pay them. So when you multiply even minutes by 27,000 users, that translates into real money. So we wanted this thing to be transparent, easy, quick. Eventually, with the solution we picked, we didn't ask for or need at this stage, but we got multi-factor authentication, identity theft protection, and portal protection. So when we were doing this evaluation, not every single sign-on provider came with multi-factor authentication. It seems like that number has gone up. It used to be, yeah, sure, buy our IAM solution and we recommend this multi-factor provider that we partner with. That scenario is changing, so if you're looking into this now, you will probably find that multi-factor comes with your solution. But even if it doesn't, maybe you should consider that if you are paying for multi-factor separately, if that can be bundled into this. And maybe you can save some money. So our first project timeline, we did the RFP late 2016. We signed the statement of work right before the Christmas break. By January 2017, we built the infrastructure. In February, did the application design workflow. We completed the work end of February. Early March, we completed the testing, and we went live second week of March. So this presentation is titled 0 to 500K in 90 days. It actually took us a little bit longer. 90 days sounds nicer, so that's why I threw in 90 days. But in terms of when we actually started the work and when we finished, that's 90 days. It is possible to do it at a shorter amount of time. Like I said in my intro, we didn't know enough, we did not prepare enough information, and our vendor often had to come back and say, hey guys, you didn't provide us this information. So there were lots of stops and starts and detours in this journey. So 90 days is very, very doable. Depends on your organizational maturity, depends on how much homework you come with. So don't think of this 90 days as an exceptional timeline. I think that's the target that you can hit, assuming you have your ducks lined up. So this is the progress that we have been doing. We are at 10 applications SSO enabled, and these are outside applications. Our learning management system is in the cloud. Our time management system is in the cloud. Our expense management system is in the cloud. All of those providers support single sign-on. So that's the critical piece. You cannot go to someone and say, hey, SSO enable me. They have to support SAML or OpenID or something like that for these 3 days to be realistic. If they do not support it, it can be months or maybe even never, depending on whether they are willing to take on this work or not. 30,000+ employees can log into various applications. 500,000 clients can log into our community portal. This is the lessons learned, mistakes that we made that I hope you guys will not make phase of the presentation. We didn't know that these questions are going to be relevant. We have 4 separate credential stores, 4 applications that our clients were using, plus Active Directory for our own internal users. And the question came up is, one, should we build this as a new credential score and migrate all the existing credentials to the new one? Or are we going to use the existing credentials? And it's a very important user experience question. So we store the passwords as hashes, as every one of you should. You should not actually store the passwords as readable passwords or as reversible encryption. So how do we migrate the hashes from one system to another one? That's doable, by the way. It's very easy to copy the hashes. But again, we have 4 separate systems. In one system, the hashes were built one way. In another system, the hashes were built a different way. So if you combine them all together, someone is not going to be able to break in. And if we ditch everything and have users re-enroll, then users are going to become unhappy. And someone is going to, even if they are not unhappy, they are going to call your call center and say, hey, I can't log in. And dealing with this huge flood of calls is going to be a big problem. So I don't have one magic solution for you. but this is something that you should consider. If you have existing credential stores, this is something you should worry about, how you are going to handle the client experience. And is time important, or is the best possible design important? And this is where you have to make some decisions. Last one is kind of important as well. Do you build it on-premise or cloud? And that's probably dependent on your corporate strategy. If you have a cloud strategy, that's going to the cloud is probably going to be the right solution for you. We decided to do this on-premise with a clause in the contract that says we reserve the right to move to the cloud in the future. And, oh yeah, by the way, we sort of figured all of this out in flight. We didn't know the answers first. And this is what it looked like. For each stakeholder in my company, the answer looked like something different. And the vendor was not exactly caught in the middle, but they were kept waiting while we figured out this answer. So when you are trying to hit a deadline, that's never a good thing. When you have a partner who's waiting for you, that's also not a good thing, because they have these resources optimized. If they are not working on my project, they need to go on another project. They cannot wait indefinitely for us. So it is almost helpful if you have the time. Ask the vendor, hey guys, what are the questions you will be asking us? So you can get the answers ready. And that requires time, which we did not have. So this is a very practical checklist. If you do not have subject matter experts, then learn some basics. You cannot have zero knowledge and hope to do this, because a vendor is going to come and ask you questions. If you don't have anyone who understands the basics, you will not even understand what those questions mean or what they're asking for. And unless you want to pay $250 an hour, you need to have in-house subject matter experts. And make sure that your vendor has good trainings available, and budget for that training, obviously. Going back to that $250 an hour, that's not the real actual amount we paid, by the way, but don't ask a vendor, hey, how much is your product to SSO enable 10,000 users? Because you are going to be about 50% of the money you are actually going to need. So definitely budget for professional services, or in-house consultants, or staff who know the product inside out. It's not like, yeah, I worked on this at my previous job and I think I can figure that out. That is absolutely not going to work. You need someone on your staff or as a consultant who has actually implemented it, who can actually teach other people how to implement it. Otherwise, you are going to be stuck again. And the last bullet, I'm not joking, otherwise your project will fail. So every time, I'm kind of going to digress a bit, every time I see the news of a major ERP project failing, I know that's what happened. And I'm talking about billion-dollar ERP projects run by the Navy, the federal government, or other companies. They fail because of the same thing. There's not enough subject matter experts. They either have consultants who don't understand the business, or consultants who don't understand the product. And plan for unexpected failures. It is going to happen. Your schedule is going to be derailed. And this may sound like I'm restating the obvious. everyone who has done IT projects knows that projects are padded. You have time and budget built into the project for failure. But for something like this, where you are integrating multiple disparate systems, you are not just putting A and B together. If your SSO product is A, you are putting in A through Z and maybe 500 other numbers after that together. You are going to be integrating them. So expect that there will be issues, but you will not know what those issues will be or when they will be coming up. And one specific example for us, we said, hey guys, can you integrate Java applications in your SSO solution? And our vendor said, yeah, sure, here's our reference implementations, here are the beautiful documentation that we do. And turns out that we are probably the only company who runs Java on Windows servers. So the module they had does not run on Windows, it was written for Linux. And so they had to rewrite a module, and we had to pay for that, obviously. So that's where unplanned timing issues and unplanned expenses come into play. And this is our picture now. We are converting existing products and all new products. This is part of our procurement now. One of the first questions we ask is, does your product support SAML-based SSO? Because we don't want to get into a position where we are ditching a product after adopting it, or we are paying extra. Questions? All right, thank you very much.